Hi, welcome to another tutorial with Vintage Market Design Furniture Paint. We are going to backtrack a little bit today and do just some basics. We've had a lot of questions about just the base painting with your first two coats and what to do and not do. And working with this paint is a little bit different than working with some of the lines that you may have used before. So we want you to forget everything you've heard about how to paint with chalk-based paint, and we're going to show you how to use this wonderful paint line and get the best results that you can. So first of all, I've got my board here that's nice and clean, and if you do need to clean it off, if you've got a waxy buildup or maybe nicotine from cigarettes or something like that, kitchen cabinets very often have grease, you can do a mixture of 1 part Dawn dishwashing liquid, 1 part vinegar, and 1 part water. And you can play with that. If they're worse, then of course you're going to want more Dawn or more vinegar. If they're not, you can just do the 3 equal parts. But that will cut through any grease, resins, tobacco, anything like that that you have, and give you a nice clean surface, because you definitely want that for this paint to do its best job. Also, I want to mention, when you're prepping your wood, this is the type of paint that you don't have to sand and you don't have to prime. However, if you're working on woods that have a red or orange base to them, such as red oak, cherry, mahogany, anything like that, you're going to want to use Vintage Market and Design's primer, which is made specifically for those tannins, and it's called Block It. It's a shellac-based primer. It's a lovely product. I have taken to using it even when I don't have to, because it gives me such a nice, thick base to start on, and the paint just is gorgeous over it. So it's called Block It. If you're doing cherry, mahogany, or red oak, anything like that, go ahead and use that first, because the tannins won't show up until you have painted, done your glaze or your wax, clear coated, and whoops, there they are. So you want to get that done first so you don't have to go back and do any wet sanding. So we don't have to do that on this piece, because this is a type of wood that doesn't have the tannins in it. So we're just going to go ahead, and I picked antique because it's just a nice, gorgeous, neutral, creamy white with a little bit of gray in it. It's one of the colors that I use the most for my clients. And I'm going to use one of the nice European brushes that has a lot of bristles in it, so that it's going to hold a lot of paint and go a long ways without me having to dip. And I've already dipped before the video, so I've got a little on here because I couldn't wait. But what you want to do is just dip your brush in just a 1/2 inch, between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch, and get the excess off. This is something that was new to me. I had been a painting contractor for some 16 years, and I was always taught butter up the brush, get as much paint as you can on the first surface. With this, what happens is you're going to almost scrub it into the paint, into the wood, and it's so thin that it's going to get absorbed into the wood grain, and it's going to create a chemical bond. And if you can see brush strokes, you've got too much. And I've already got, you can see how much I took off, and I had a little bit too much on my brush. So I'm going to just go back over that and spread it out, work it into that wood with a dry brush technique. And 2 advantages of this is it's going to give you that chemical bond, so you're not going to have to worry about chipping or flaking or the paint coming off, and it will dry a little bit faster. And 2 of the most common problems that I've seen people have with this line, or really any line of chalk-based paint, is they use too much product and they don't wait long enough for it to cure. And there's a difference between curing and drying. Drying is when it's just dry to the touch. And probably, since I'm in New Mexico and it's awfully dry here, this area that I started, 2 minutes ago, is already dry to the touch. That's not going to be cured, however, for several hours. And what happens when it cures is the molecules of the paint actually go in and grab a hold to the wood. And that's what gives you that lovely character that you don't have to sand or prime. One of the things that everybody loves so much about chalk-based paint. And so our first coat is barely going to cover. It's going to lay that base, and you don't have to worry about getting 100% coverage with your first coat. You're going to have a little bit show through here and there. And then when we go through with our second coat, we're going to do that a little bit thicker. And what that will do is level out and create a really smooth surface over your first coat because it's so thin. And you'll notice I am not going with the grain of the wood. Again, that's something I had to unlearn from all my years as a painting contractor. We used to go in and do somebody's kitchen cabinet, and we would start doing with the grain, and you can see you get zero coverage that way. That doesn't work at all. So this method of just doing some little cross hatchings, scrubbing into the wood, getting it into all those little wood grains is going to make it last a lot longer. I guess there's a third advantage too, because when you're not using a lot of paint for your first coat, you're not using as much paint. And this paint line is very reasonably priced, but you're going to love it because you use even less because you're not having to do the first coat real heavy and thick to get the effect that you want. One of the other things that I like about this technique when I'm doing cross-hatching instead of the long grain effect is when I go back over it and do my finished products, my glazes or my waxes or my crackle, and I've got this cross-hatching, you get a much more interesting vintage look. It actually makes the piece look older, it has character, you get some areas that are thicker and thinner, and it just looks, you can see the hand in the work. You can see that somebody's done it and it doesn't look mechanical, and it's a really pretty look. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with this and get my first coat on, and when we come back, this will be cured and we'll be doing a second heavier coat.